Okay, so we have structures and quantities. So it sounds simple. Can just people become self-aware, develop intuition about structures and quantities, just get rid of their boxes, kick their phones out of their lives, stop social media doom scrolling, embrace flows, make hunter moves and be happy and successful, just easy peasy. The main reason is that we cannot develop such intuition easily because humans are more highly complex systems than just a simple bunch of structures and quantities. You're a system, just like any human being, very complex one. And we're also living in a much more complex world than we evolved to handle biologically. There are too many structures and quantities, and it will be fine, our intuition is very powerful, but there's one more problem. They all influence each other. You are a system and its objects, your mental and physical health and everything that happens in your body and mind, all of the hormones, the thoughts, the feelings, the intellectual knowledge, your identity, the stories you tell about yourself, they all influence each other. It creates a big interconnected mess. So the structures and quantities are not enough anymore. What do you need? Let's see. First, an example. Imagine you get fired from work due to cost reductions in the company. This is one data point. Literally one bit changes in your life. The me have job bit changes from 1 to 0. That's it. One bit change. At the start, after a day, you're already kind of anxious. Will I be able to find another decent job? You start doubting your self-worth and I'm jobless again. You ruminate over your past work performance or overthinking of absolutely useless thoughts because they're about the past, you cannot change anything. But they creep in, you ruminate because you start doubting your self-worth. You wonder, did I perform well? Did I suck up to my boss enough? Could have I done things differently? And other super harmful or useless thoughts. And you don't know whether to tell your parents. You imagine telling your girlfriend, you don't know how she would react. You have different scenarios about this, and all of this is just spread. It just invades your entire brain. Your entire brain gets invaded by one initial bit of change. How does this happen? It happens because human beings are extremely interconnected. Everything influences everything else. In such systems, it's no longer useful just talking about structures and quantities because they're everywhere and the ripple effects go in circles. For example, this negative spiral that I just showed you may pass 10 times via the object self-worth, and every time new bad thought or feeling will decrease your self-worth until it gets to the bottom and you feel like a hopeless loser. And every time it passes the ripple when it passes through your self-worth object in the structure, the system that you are. And every time when it's reduced, it creates a new ripple in the system because your self-worth, your self-love level, it influences everything. So it just becomes a negative vibration that you cannot get rid of. And the ripple effects, when they go in circles, the many positive feedback loops, positive feedback loop, I have to stress that it doesn't mean that it's good. It's a term, positive feedback. It just means that it's a spiral. It's reinforcing the good or bad change. So positive feedback loop doesn't mean good. It just means increasing. This is the meaning of positive in this case. So the positive feedback loops, good or bad, become the most important structures. They vibrate with the positive or negative, so the good or the bad food we feed them with. The food are emotions that we internalize, thoughts, everything that the world throws at us, everything that we cannot properly deal with. And this is why we call these complex systems, such as people, vibe systems. Why? They are networks, everything is connected to everything, directly or indirectly. They vibrate, and those vibes, they go in circles. And in vibe systems, the low-level structures and quantities, they entangle so much that they lose meaning by itself, meaning that they are not the right thing to analyze. The only questions that matter are the positive feedback loops, the spirals, up or down. And will the ripple wither, die out, or will it go viral and explode with the energy borrowed from the system itself, from the energy you already have? This is the main question of vibe systems, because the vibrations, they point your mental resources in some way and you give them momentum, and the direction that they set you in, this is the most important question. Will it be the positive feedback loop? Will it be good or bad? And the hunter versus sheep dynamic, which is about biology, which is about what are the hormones that I have in my body. Are they hormones of love and energy and motivation, or are they the hormones of fear and boxing in and closing in? This dynamic and the other less like body but more mind dynamic, which is the boxes versus flow dynamic, which is about which hemisphere of the brain is your dominant now, the left boxy one or the right flowy one. These two spectrums are all about momentum. You may have a lot of sheep choices, but if you do a lot of hunter choices, then you're in hunter mode. You may have a lot of boxes, you may have watched TikTok for an hour, but then you go out with your loved one for a nice walk in nature, and now you're in the flow dynamic. So you can always improve, you can always reverse, but the momentum where you're going to, this is most important. Can you create and keep ripples in the right direction while killing the ones going in the wrong direction? That's what your intuition about vibe systems, that's what your intuition about you has to tell you. And there is intuition about this. The intuition of network effects, about momentum, about positive feedback loops. We call it vibe intuition. You are a complex vibe system, and self-understanding simply means having vibe intuition. You don't lack data points about yourself. You live your life, you have plenty of data points. Everything in your life is a data point. You may lack not data, but the framework to analyze it all, to lay down the data points with no emotional bias. So you lay down the data as it is. This is what most people are missing. They either distort the data emotionally, or they lack the framework to lay down the data in the proper structure. This is where I Grow Younger comes into play in order to help you, to give you the framework to analyze the data. You can use many other approaches to detach the data from the emotions it goes in. You can be mindful, you can meditate, you can do like breathing exercises, you can go to sports, dance, try to get your emotions and your anxiety off you so that you can have clear data. So this is a problem that has a lot of known solutions. But the framework to analyze the data, the intuition about yourself, almost no one talks about it. So we focus, I Grow Younger, very much into the intuition, the framework to analyze the data. And by analyze, I mean intuitively analyze, not overthink it, not even think about it. I don't think at all. I just have it in my brain, and it gives me good decisions, good results, and I don't give a fuck about how it all happens. The important thing is that I get what I need. I don't need control in the processes that I make the decisions. I don't need to know, I just need it to work. I Grow Younger, it's about building an intuitive framework about you and your life. You already have the data points. They are confusing if you don't have the reliable framework to lay them onto. How should we build this framework? If you have a very simplified static framework, for example, let's say you're this type of person, you have this type of problems, we miss the all-important nuance of how everything changes in time. And since the changes in time potentially cause positive feedback loops and may change a lot in yourself and your life, we cannot ignore it. We need something that evolves over time. This is a problem of many psychological models. For example, if you take a personality test, it ignores the fact that the direction you're heading in may be more important than your current state, who you actually are, because in a year you can be a different person if you take good steps to change and improve. But on the other hand, how can we evaluate everything happening in our rich subconsciousness in real time? This is clearly impossible, it's just too complex. So we shouldn't go overboard with trying to mirror reality in our model, or there will be too much complexity to handle. This is why I Grow Younger takes an optimal middle ground. We ignore small events like your random thoughts and emotions, but we do use your actions as data points for our intuitive framework, which can become, of course, yours. Actions are the real deal. Positive feedback loops almost always involve actions. Actions tend to cause both the good and the bad positive feedback loops, the spirals up or down. So although we ignore a lot to reduce the complexity to a manageable level, we never miss any of the upwards or downward spirals that will make you who you will be in the future. And this is reflected in all I Grow Younger advice. We don't tell you what to do, how to feel. And in therapy, there are a lot of helpful methods like diaries and affirmations. And they can help, undoubtedly they can help, but they are homework. We put them in a different category. There's your life, then there's homework. So extra things that you do in order to be better. I'm not an enemy of homework, but people don't learn to understand and use their lives, their actual lives. Of course, if their life understanding is so bad that then they need homework, definitely then the therapist should give them homework. But if you learn to understand your life is so rich, so long, so nuanced, then you would not need homework. You would not need to write what happened today to be used in a therapeutic way, because the therapy will happen in your brain in real time. You have real understanding of what happens. Of course, it's not easy to get to this point, but definitely possible. And remember, in life, We're not in school. It's real life. You're already living it. You're just wasting the value by diluting the data points and not living intuitively. If you just lay the data points on a good framework, like the I Grow Younger framework, and if you trust your intuition, then you don't need anything else. And this framework, it's just made of the few driving forces that influences what happens with you in your life. And given that you're in a vibe system, almost everything comes down to one simple skill. And we try to teach you this skill, which is to feel which actions trigger upward spirals and which actions trigger downward spirals. That's all there is. That's it. Once this feeling becomes a part of you, your first sufficiently high good flow moment, or a moment filled with self-love, unconditional love, empathy, meaning, this moment will give you a spark to start using the field, give up control or make a leap of faith and catch the wave of constant improvement. So constant upward spiral, which will not by any means be hard or uncomfortable. On the contrary, it will be full of joy and you will feel your vision for the future. Joy and vision, best combination possible. Most of our framework cornerstones are spectrums which are universal and very simple to pursue. So you want to have self-love, you want to have unconditional love, you want to have flows in general, you want to have freedom, you want to have money, which is important for freedom. You want to be in hunter mode, to be driven by love, energy, motivation, curiosity, not to be closed in with fear. But most people also want absolutely the same things, but they don't know where to start. They don't know which domino push will cause the desired virtuous cycle. And this is where vibe intuition is very important, because vibe intuition tells you which first moves will get you into the upward spiral with very low effort. And this is what the I Grow Younger framework will ultimately help you achieve, to get the vibe intuition, which is the best tool for self-improvement, because it will both give you the understanding and the first steps. But the benefits don't even end there, because if you can feel your vibes very well, you can also feel the vibes of other people to a degree. We already talked about the cooperation and the breaking points. Now we get this to a more intuitive framework where you feel the whole other person, not just their tolerance to your shit, but like them as a total, complete system. And remember that we are much more similar than we are different. People go through many periods in life, and some of our past periods may be very similar to the present period of another person, because you have different lives in different periods, and you may see another person and say, this is exactly the same system that I was 10 years ago. And then it will be possible for you to use your intuition from 10 years ago, the way you felt, to understand the other person. And when I talk about being trapped by the boxes and the sheep mode, I've been there myself. Like, don't question it. I was definitely not born with my current levels of emotional well-being, intuition, and understanding. I had to learn all of this mostly myself. It turns out, in all complex systems, they all can be understood much better with vibe intuition. The behavior of groups, the psychology of the crowd, they are all about vibes. Society is a vibe system, actually. Geopolitics is the ultimate, most complex vibe system, because it's a vibe system. The world made of vibe systems, countries which are made of vibe systems, like communities and parts of society which are made of vibe systems, people. And this is why no one can predict geopolitics. Like, you can listen to the best expert, they don't know fuck about geopolitics. They can guess, they can sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong, but the levels of complexity and chaos in geopolitics, even in the politics of the single country, make it almost impossible to predict, even with the huge power of intuition. And if you don't understand yourself, you cannot understand society and the world. And they are made of people like you. So you have two paths. Either develop the vibe intuition, understand yourself and others and the world, and be able to navigate everything greatly. Or if you don't develop vibe intuition and you stick to your logic, you don't develop and use this, and you understand nothing and everything in the world comes as a surprise to you, and you're always unprepared and you don't make the right decisions, and everything is some kind of mitigated disaster. It's not that hard to understand yourself. You just need to dial down the noise coming from the craziness of the world, unlearn the myths that make your data points biased, see through the fog, use your intuition, and it works. As a vibe system, ignoring everything but the feedback loops, turning the direction you're going in into the key of understanding yourself, because your direction, life is quite long, your direction is very important, because it gets you to places then other places, then other places, and in the end you're a different person. So complexity is manageable. You just need to really turn the direction into the main thing that you are looking into, not the current state, the direction. Actually, over-obsessing over your current state will not help, but direction is what you're putting your energy into, and this is what you should focus on. And the world is very complex. It's very hard to intuitively understand the world. It's just too much stuff going on at the same time. But you are not that complex in terms of systems. You are indeed very complex. You have thoughts, emotions, everything all of the time. You have very rich subconsciousness where you don't see what's going on. But the things that are the driving forces of the vibes are just like 10 or 15. And you can learn to understand, to feel them, to feel how they mix, to learn how they influence each other. And in the end, you just need all of those super important spectrums like self-love, unconditional love, your strive for freedom, your strive for meaning, all of these flows. You just need to increase them and get rid of the boxes that get in their way. So you are complex, but the way to live your life optimally is not at all. It's that simple. Just hard to follow because the world is always throwing you into other directions and distracting you, but you can do it. You just need to know that the main thing is the main thing, and you can understand, handle and improve yourself intuitively, and you can enjoy it.